Alright folks, this is my setup for my 1/32 scale Micro T. So I just thought I'd show this to you guys. Now, I know you're going to see a lot of people have some crazy mods on theirs. Me, not so much. Now, I do have the aluminum bulkheads front and rear, aluminum suspension arms as well. Inside the hubs are aluminum all the way around. I have the Losi brushless setup in there. As you can see,
one of the great signs that prophecy was valid, that the Bible was God.
I run the Losi made for 1/36 scale, made for mini scale ESC, which is great. I mean, this is beside it is the 1/16 scale or 1/32 scale track receiver from Spectrum, which originally were put out for the 1/16 scale Revo and Slash. Originally, that's what I bought them for. I have one for my small Revo here, and one for my Slash. This is actually the one out of my Slash. The Slash, detailed in other videos, was actually totaled and absolutely destroyed doing high-speed testing, during which, by the way, it managed 41 miles an hour before the inner left bearing collapsed in on itself, shredded itself, pulled the car to the left and sent it into a tire at 41 miles an hour face first. Completely obliterated the whole left side of the car. So it necessitated a complete rebuild. At that point, I actually decided to convert my Slash to a Revo, and as a result, I have basically everything I need to build another Slash except for the frame. The frame was really what was broken the worst. So eventually I will do another video where I build another Slash, and I'll walk you guys through a real custom Slash that'll have some nice handling capabilities. I found some good tires for it, so I'll be into that later. For now, I wanted to do a Losi vehicle. I haven't done one ever for a YouTube video, and I just kind of wanted to show. Now, I've removed my on-off switch. I find them really unreliable. The little switches break. It's a pain in the butt. Instead, what I've done is I've just taken the wires, wired them together, and that way, as soon as you plug it in, it turns on. As long as you have your remote on when that happens, it's no big deal. Now, you'll also notice that I have the battery shoved right into the back, and in the front I have a block of foam to stop the battery from moving back and forth. So I also have a weight on the front of the car. Now, the reason I've done this is because I run the car a lot on the sidewalk, and it does help. Now, it will occasionally, you know, hit a big curb and do a flip or something like that, but it survives those well and doesn't seem to break. Now, one of the things I wanted to recommend here was, you know, I've got this. Now, this was, as you can see, this is what my brushless motor was in when I bought it. Now, I've had this packaging for quite a while and wasn't sure why I kept it until yesterday. I cut it into strips. In fact, the strip that I used took exactly half of one of these flaps, and that's what I used. And then I've used those to make my own links. Now, these links are actually a slight bit longer, and they change the towing and camber angles. Now, if you look, these are about perfect towing and camber angles for an off-road car, and it handles really sweet off-road right now. I mean that by that in dirt or in gravel or whatever, it just seems to love it up. These tires are also extremely grippy, folks. They are awesome for the street. So, believe it or not, one of the reasons that I put only aluminum on the lower half of the vehicle and there's no upgrades on the top half is because the idea was to keep the weight as low to the ground as is absolutely possible, which is one of the reasons I went with this ESC and receiver. They are both made for small scale vehicles. They're both feather light, and they add almost no weight. There's actually more weight in this 3.5 gram weight than there is in this ESC, which is awesome, awesome, awesome. It's so feather light. Anyway, so this is my mini Micro T, sorry. I have my mini T is up here. I'll do a video on that one at some point in the future. That one's going to be all Castle Creations. This one I basically decided to do all Losi and Spectrum. The only thing on here that's basically, you know, never needed to be changed are these body mounts, the body pin mounts, and the shock towers. They have never needed to be changed. Wow, look at that, eh? Now that didn't really look that dirty from far back, but I can see it needs a cleaning with the camera on there. But usually she looks like she's pretty clean, but I just finished running it. And if you look in here, you'll see that I don't actually clean this one all that often. It's my play toy. I mean, of all my vehicles, this is the one that I just tend to take out, throw on the ground, and go for a walk with. Anyway, that's that. And this is my remote that I'm using for it. I do want to show you guys. I won't even show you actually. I have my throttle punch set to 8%. Now the reason I have that is sometimes with these vehicles they can be a little twitchy at really low throttle and sometimes just twitch and not really go anywhere. So, and that's not a gear mesh issue. That's just one of those things that the car can have a little bit of trouble meeting its own momentum or surpassing its own momentum. The problem is if you look right at the motor, it really is a gear mesh problem. You see the slight angle the motor is on? And if you were to look at the gear under here, it's on a slight angle as well, but the angles are opposite. So I don't think that that's actually this motor mount plate, but my next upgrade for this will probably be to redo the rear end. Maybe even replace this piece with aluminum and this one if I go crazy on it, but I don't think so. Like I said, one of the reasons I've kept everything so low in the vehicle, like no shock tower mounts or anything like that, is because I wanted all my weight as low to the ground as I can put it, and that is why I did it like this. Now, as you can see, it's had a couple pieces replaced. Something breaks, replace it with plastic. It's not a big deal. It doesn't really seem to affect handling any, and you really don't need to go all aluminum. I mean, especially with this vehicle. But I do recommend enough aluminum to keep the weight down. Mine's still very, very light. And it's brushless, so it is very fast. I have people tell me all the time that they're amazed at how fast it is. It'll probably do 35 or 40 clicks with the gearing I have on it. Maybe 15 or 20 miles an hour. It's in that range. But it's not going any faster than that. This is not a 35 mile an hour car like the Mini T will be. But the reason being partly is it's so small. I mean, as soon as you hit 15 or 20 miles an hour on a sidewalk, the first curb you hit gives you a backflip type or forward flip type of scenario. So you do need to be careful about that. Also,
the population of planet Earth,
as you can see, the bumper, the body, they do tend to get pretty chewed up while running on the sidewalk. So one of the things I did here that anybody could do was I used 2 screws that have a head on them that are not designed to fit flush. And the reason I did that, even though I don't think they were meant to be here originally, is so that it helps just a little bit. And you can see how much contact is made in this area. And these screws really help a lot, just to allow you to run real soft suspension without truly bottoming out the vehicle, which is real nice, because as you can see, I keep my rear fairly soft, the front's just a tiny bit stiffer. Even though they have the same springs, one of the things I love about this car is you can just tighten screws to make it tighter and loosen them a tiny bit to make it softer. So this is actually giving me a lot more adjustability than I had expected originally, and I love adjustability in a car, and this one does have plenty, due to the fact that you can tighten all of those screws and loosen them to get tighter or looser suspension travel. I should point out, one of the reasons I wanted to show you guys these links is because they actually seem to perform and handle better than the originals. Now as you can see there, just like the originals, they got the little bend thing going on, but really, I mean, they're kind of ideal. I like them because you can make them a little thicker and a little sturdier around where you make the holes, like here and like here. And you can do that, whereas on the stock Link, if I could find one, I don't actually have one handy anymore. On the stock Link, there's so little room around the screw, it's just such a tiny thin piece of material that it tends to break really, really easily during sidewalk cruising. So, this is Keith, and I thought I'd give you an idea of how I've set up my Micro T to handle the sidewalk and various other terrain. Anyway, this is my street pounding Micro T, and this is Keith out.